Good morning, everyone. It's not connected yet. Okay, are we in? Are we on? Okay, great. Hi, everybody. I'd like to welcome you all here. I'm glad to see so many faces. I don't know how many people are out there on Zoomland or live streaming, but we hope there's a number. I'd like to introduce, which one of you? You want me to introduce? Good, okay, good. I'd like to introduce Rob Watson, who is one of the piano professors here at Cal State Fullerton, and he'll do our introductions for this afternoon. Morning.
Merci. Thank you very much. I'm going to do this so that you can see as well as hear when I speak. I hope that's all right with you. Please remain 6 feet away. You'll be fine. Is that right? Okay. I just want to thank you again for both online and in person, making these opportunities available for our pianists to play for you all. It gives them a great boost in prepping performances, and it gives you the opportunity to hear some really great music. This morning is no exception to that. We will have Colleen Sharp, who is in her graduate program here at Cal State Fullerton in her last semester. She mentioned on the way over that the last time she spoke or played here was November of 2019, which was her first semester, and now she's here in her last semester. I wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, the program that you have is not in color like this because I don't have the funds to do that with. But I just wanted you to see the color artwork that I have on there is absolutely splendid. The second thing I'd like to do is to invite you to look at the back of the program, those of you who have it. We have a guest artist who will be here in November. His name is, it's not there. Well, it's not on this program. We have a guest artist who will be here on November the 3rd, and his name is Alex MacDonald. He'll be doing a fascinating program, and I'd encourage you to go online to purchase tickets and to see all about it. On the back of this program, however, you'll see that we are conducting our annual PIP auditions, and this will be in the main lobby of Meng Concert Hall. And you're all welcome to come on over there at 1 o'clock to brave the fall weather that we're having. Did you all notice that there was a change in the weather this morning? The nip in the air was all the way down to 66 degrees here in Fullerton. Anyway, we are a very active piano area, and we want you to know what we're doing, and so we'll continue to publicize as best we can upcoming events. And then the last thing I'd like to say is that what Colleen will be presenting for you is part of her master's program recital, her second recital. I'm always encouraging students to do something a little different on their second recital other than just a traditional recital. And so when Colleen started working on works by Clara Schumann and then Robert Schumann, she said, I think I want to make a program that incorporates both. And so she will talk about that today. She'll be playing the first movement of a piano concerto, which, as you know, is a work for piano with orchestra. Oh, there's no orchestra today. And besides lacking funding for that as well, what you'll be hearing, and she'll talk about it, how to listen to a piano concerto and what's really going on in this one, and some backstory information that will be absolutely fascinating. It looks like Ellie wants to say something else. She does need to use a mask when she performs? Okay, I beg your pardon. Okay.
Sorry about that. That's okay. It's a requirement.
Fine. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. All right. And then, without further ado, please welcome Colleen Sharp.
Thank you. Yes, he is right. I am doing a program featuring the works of Clara and Robert Schumann. They are my favorite 19th century couple. To call them a story of forbidden love is really an understatement. The two of them met. Young Clara was an adolescent, but already a renowned concert pianist, very successful, already traveling Europe. And Robert Schumann was the student of her father who was living in their home. And he was much older than her at the time. So their romance started when she was very young, but it was forbidden through and through the entire time. Robert Schumann suffered from multiple difficulties. He had a manic depressive disorder. He had alcohol dependencies. And he really was the epitome of the mad genius from that romantic era trope. So he was the mad genius. She was the young artist with a promising career, and the father wanted nothing to do with them together. So the trial for her hand in marriage lasted about a decade. It ended in, it was full of slander. It ended in lawsuits, secret letters, time apart. The father would take her away to other cities far away, But it was in those times of separation that Robert Schumann created some of his best works. The anxiety and the mania he would experience just in waiting for her letters to arrive in the mail or by post or pony, however they did it. In those short periods of time, he would produce some of his greatest works. It's said that his piece Kreisleriana, it's a half an hour long piano solo piece with 8 movements. He composed it in just 3 days, waiting for her letter. So to say that he was obsessed with her is an understatement. And I really think as a musical partnership, and to quote my big fat Greek wedding, she really was the neck that turned his head. And she had her hand in all of his works. He would compose a piece. He would have her play it, get her opinions on it. And the interesting thing about this concerto, he actually composed it in 1841 as a one-movement fantasy with orchestra. And it flopped. He wasn't able to sell it to publishers. But it was 3 years later that Clara encouraged him to rework that piece, and he actually reworked that piece and to make it into the full piano concerto that you'll hear part of today. So the first movement, even though I'm only playing the first movement, it does work as a standalone piece for that reason. Now, some of the interesting things about the piece itself, and then I'll get started, just because we're pressed for time. He composed it with her in mind, through and through, like he did for many of his works. Now, his pet name for her was Chiara, C-H-I-A-R-A. Now, he insisted years prior that his piano concerto had to have a theme in A minor. And the reason is because his theme, C, B, A, A. That can be heard throughout. Well, in German notation, substitute the note B for an H, so C-H-A-A, and that was his way of using her name as a cipher to put the theme of this entire work together. Okay, so you'll hear the theme coming back. You'll hear it in melancholy ways. You'll hear it in more upbeat, optimistic keys of like C major. You'll hear it in a dream. So you'll hear it a variety of ways, but just know he's thinking about her in all those different personalities and the moods at the time. And then lastly, I want to say something that is so signature about Robert Schumann's writing and his personality is he really, he had 2 characters that depicted his personality. Florestan, which was his fiery, passionate mood and character, and it's often found in contrast with Eusebius, which is the calm, romantic, kind of soothing persona you'll hear. So often through this piece, you'll hear, like in the opening introduction, lightning bolts, and that's Florestan's entrance, followed by Eusebius daydreaming of his Clara. And so you will hear a lot of that throughout the work. And I'll just talk briefly about the form. The concerto form follows roughly a sonata form, where we'll start with an exposition that's going to introduce the main themes of the work. And then we're going to have a middle section, the development, where you will hear the lightning bolts again. You will know that that's Florestan returning. Now, there are episodes of call and response with the orchestra But as you know, it's just me today. So you will hear some calls, but not the responses. And so if there are ever periods of abrupt pauses or episodes where it sounds like I'm just playing an accompaniment, keep in mind the orchestra would be kind of taking over at that time. So, okay, thank you. Do I turn it off? Oh, one of 30 performances. Yes, exactly. Yeah, what's the quote?
David Kim, the concertmaster of the Philadelphia Orchestra, when he's preparing concertos, does 30 run-out rehearsal performances for people before he actually plays with the orchestra.
Yes, and that's number one. So thank you for bringing it with me. Because with the organ, so what the format we would do here for the recital is we would have a colleague on the second piano playing the orchestral reduction. So it's a 2-piano interplay instead of the full orchestra. And that's just the first movement of 3. So the whole piece total is about 35, 40 minutes long. So thank you for listening. Do you have any questions for me?
When you prepare for this a concerto work, you must mix a certain amount of time in the practice room by yourself with the piano with a certain amount of time of listening to an orchestra?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How do you work it?
Yeah, so part of the process before you decide on the piece is really listening to the pieces and really making sure you love it through and through. So definitely the listening is the early process, and you're constantly listening and listening to different artists' versions of it, because ideally you want to have the orchestra part in your head where you could be singing along, thinking along with it. And in a lot of ways, I actually think it's a lot easier to play it with the accompaniment with the orchestra, because you are so busy focusing and listening and working together with them that you don't have time for the nervous chatter to sneak in and distract you. So I actually think playing it solo like this is a bit more difficult. But yes, a lot of listening. There are some apps that will allow you to play along to just the accompaniment, but it's almost impossible to do it all the way through because it doesn't account for variety of rhythms and some musical aspects. But yeah, that's a good question.
And that's where working with the second pianist also helps.
Right, yes, and we'll start rehearsals next week, and we'll have ongoing rehearsals through the semester. Yeah, lots of rehearsal.
Like the dynamic between the soloist and the conductor not being rehearsed could be really spontaneous or chaotic or some of each.
Yeah, well, that's why it's so important. Both parts, they stay in time. Lots of metronome work as well. Yeah, it's easy when you're playing by yourself to get a little bit loose, but when you do have the second piano in the rehearsal, it's very clear.
When will you be performing this?
December 4th, Saturday, December 4th at 3 p.m.
Here?
Here on campus in the recital hall.
Or your recital?
Yes. Any other questions? Cool. Well, thank you again for having me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. Am I on? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for that wonderful performance, and I'm really looking forward to being there and seeing you perform the whole thing. That'd be great. Thank you all for joining us. Don't forget that today, if you want a nice treat, at 1 o'clock over at Meng, they are doing PIP auditions, which means that these students will be coming in and they'll be showing their best. And I'm sure there's going to be some wonderful surprises there. So thank you all. Thanks.